You know that actually I don't understand very well the word failure. What failure is. Um, we have not to fulfill a goal. We have not to fulfill a preconceived design of world, of society, of life. All in life is experimentation, and all in life is failure. Always, always. We die. That's the demonstration of the fact that life is failure. So why fear failure? The problem is how much pleasure do you take in that failure? How much sharing can you produce in that failure? How much change your failure is producing? This is the problem. Error is an attempt in something new. Don't expect that something new will all of a sudden fulfill the will of God. I don't know if the will of God can be discovered or fulfilled, but I will not do that. I do not pretend to do that. I want to attempt my own failure. And I think that I will be glad if many people find pleasure and usefulness in my failure. This is, I think also that we should relax. The 20th century has been a century filled with a dogmatic expectation, many dogmatic expectations. Communists wanted to fulfill the perfection of society. Fascists want to fulfill the perfection of race. Fundamentalists wanted to fulfill the perfection of religious society. Neoliberals wanted to fulfill the perfection of the productive and competitive society. Take a deep breath and stop pretending to be perfect. I am not, and nobody is. So accepting our error is a good way to start I think to start a more relaxed and also a more productive world. Before talking about social change, we should understand what is change in general. For instance, change in life, in biological matter, in nature. So change is generally considered as the shift, the passage from a state to another state, better from a form to another form. We can say it with the Greek word morphogenesis, the creation, the formation, the birth of a morphe, that means form in Greek. So the passage from a form to another form. Think of the genetic process. You have an information, the DNA information. It's a string of numbers, of relations, of abstract information in a sense. This is DNA. And this zero-dimensional information at a certain moment becomes an organism, a living body which is multidimensional. So what happens in that passage, in that transformation? Something very enigmatic happens. A concept becomes a multidimensional process. This is a way to think about biological processes, but this is also a way to think about political, social changes. You have a concept, you have an idea, you have maybe an art gesture, and these may become a shared form of life. How does it happen? It happens because information proliferates. The word proliferation is a biological word, first of all. The virus proliferates. The cell proliferates. Proliferation means scission, separation, and multiplication of a form. So I think that we should be able to think social change as the proliferation of a new form which is produced by desire, by imagination. In the modern age in general, revolution was a conscious, voluntary decision and the imposition of a new totality taking the place of the old totality. This was, in a sense, a simplification of the real process, also in 1917 Russia or in the 1789 France. But in those times, it was possible to think the domination of the volunty and of consciousness on the infinite complexity of reality. Nowadays, it's impossible to think such a simplification. You cannot believe anymore that social change is a decision, a linear transformation of the decision into volunty, and the linear imposition of the volunty on the infinite complexity of events. You can't believe it's not true. Power and revolution, power and transformation can no more act in that way. So, what is now social change? In my opinion, now social change is essentially the proliferation of a new form of life, of a new form of creating space, of a new form of production, of a new form. You start on a small scale. It happens in a house, it happens in an art gallery maybe, it happens in the mind of someone who comes up with a new idea. Then it starts proliferating like a cell, and nobody can stop the proliferation. The police, the authoritarian state, the church, they can try. They can repress, but they can stop a massive movement, maybe, but they can't stop the proliferation, because the proliferation is not happening on the molar level, on the institutional level, on the visible level. The proliferation happens like a virus that you cannot stop because it's invisible. and because it's taking all the space by contagion, not by volunty, not by political imposition. We tend to use more and more the word activism and less the word militantism. Once upon a time in the 60s and in the 70s, when I was a young man, we said I'm a militant. Now I don't like so much that word, and I prefer to say I'm an activist. What is the difference between these two words and these two concepts? Militant is someone who takes a part and strongly fights. Militare in Latin means to fight, essentially, to be a military person. So the idea of militantism was and is essentially the idea of a front against another front, of a totality against another totality. I think that now we have to think in a way which is not reducible to the totality and to the front. We have, as I said, to think in terms of virus. So we have to think in terms of small, microscopic, invisible, molecular actions. Actions that belongs to the field of language, to the field of imagination, to the field of production, to the field of sexuality, to the field of dwelling, of inhabiting space. We say, for instance, media activism, and we refer to an activity which can be the activity of a video of a person who has a cell video recorder and goes to the street and takes pictures of what happens in a certain moment, in a certain place. It's nothing, but it's a way to capture reality in a certain way and to reproduce, to change reality with the image and to propose to people to see that spot, that point, that street in another way and to perceive something that before you could not perceive. If it happens on a small scale, it's art. If it becomes a process of proliferation of artistic gestures, it becomes media activism. The space of social mediation is informed and changed by this kind of multiplication. So I also see a relation between art and activism. Artists, in my opinion, are those people. I don't want to define art. It's too much for me. But I just say something about it. Artists, in my opinion, can be seen as those people who perceive in a different way. And they see something that the common perception does not see. They listen to the noise of the city and they find a bling that before was not perceived. So if they are able to transform that bling in another way of producing, consuming, making love, and occupy the space, they are starting a media activist process. Actually, I never decided if I am an activist or if I am an artist. But I think it's not that important. And as you said, activists think that the pure activist think that his action is going to change the world. And the artist sometimes feels guilty because his action is not going to change the world. But you know, the very idea of changing the world is a little bit crazy. Nobody changes the world. Everybody can do something to change his own environment. But my environment, first of all, my linguistic environment, my relational environment, my affective environment, can become a virus. A virus is an example, is a model, is a repeatable gestalt, is a recombinant transformation that can go everywhere, can proliferate, and in this way, let's say, change the world. You know, William Burroughs said once upon a time that Jack Kerouac has changed the world writing On the Road, his book On the Road, again and again. Why did he change the world? Because he was showing people doing something. People going in the street and hiking, how do you say, stopping cars, asking for a lift, and making love in strange places, and working together for producing what was needed for the community, and helping poor people to do daily action and so on. So Kerouac, in his books, has kind of created a theater of the possible. This is the way we can contribute to the social change, creating a theater in our own life, in our own way of relating to the others, the contagion. This is the real way we can change the world. Contagion means the proliferation of a malady, the malady of being happy. This is our contribution to changing the world.